The video didn't explode online. It crept. It appeared first as a cropped clip, 7 seconds long, no sound, no context. Just a dimly lit sidewalk, a waiting taxi, and 3 figures moving too quickly for comfort. People scrolled past it at first. It looked ordinary. Forgettable. The kind of moment cities swallow whole every night. But then someone slowed it down. Frame by frame, the ordinary fractured. The timestamp placed it 20 minutes before Yoon Menglong vanished from public view. The location matched the route toward the abandoned lot. And the man being guided, pulled, toward the taxi walked with the same stiff hesitation seen later in the drone footage. Yoon. The clip replayed endlessly now, no longer silent. Someone had synced it with the opening notes of the goodbye song. The piano fell like rain over concrete, and suddenly the moment felt unbearable to watch. On the left side of the frame stood Du Siang, a well-known figure in this universe, polished, calm, always photographed smiling under white lights. In the video, his smile was gone. His hand gripped Yoon's arm, fingers tight enough to whiten the skin. On the right stood another man. Taller. Unidentified. Face half hidden by the shadow of the taxi door. He said something Yoon clearly didn't like. Yoon shook his head. That was when Du Siang leaned closer. The moment froze. People zoomed in on Yoon's expression. Eyes darting, jaw clenched, lips parting as if to speak. But the audio was gone. Whatever he said disappeared into the night. The taxi door opened. And the internet collectively stopped breathing. As the full version leaked hours later, the missing pieces fell into place with horrifying elegance. The camera angle widened. The sound returned, distorted, but enough. Just talk, Du Siang said, voice low, rehearsed. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Yoon replied, barely audible, I already talked. That line echoed through everything that followed. The second man shifted, blocking Yoon's retreat. A hand pressed against Yoon's back, not violent, not gentle. Calculated. The kind of pressure meant to look cooperative to anyone passing by. Someone off camera laughed. That detail enraged people most. The taxi engine idled like a patient predator. Yellow paint reflecting streetlight. A normal car for an abnormal moment. Yoon hesitated one last time, turning his head slightly as if searching for a witness. Anyone. The camera shook. And then he was inside. The door closed with a sound too final for something so small. The video ended there. No struggle. No screams. Just compliance forced to look voluntary. The fallout was immediate and uncontrollable. Side-by-side comparisons flooded feeds. Yoon entering the taxi, Yoon bound in the abandoned lot, Yoon singing goodbye at his piano. 3 moments stitched together into a single, devastating sentence. This was not coincidence. This was choreography. Dark rumors returned with new teeth. People speculated the taxi company had scrubbed its logs. That the driver never existed in official records. That the license plate appeared in at least 2 other unresolved cases tied to the same invisible network. Screenshots circulated showing Du Siang leaving a building minutes later, expression composed again, phone to his ear, already rewriting the night. But what shattered everything was what Yoon did inside the taxi. A newly enhanced audio layer revealed faint tapping, irregular at first, then deliberate. Someone with audio training isolated it and realized the rhythm matched the opening bars of the goodbye song. Yoon was counting. Marking time. Leaving proof. He knew this moment mattered. The man beside him noticed too late. Stop that, a voice snapped. The tapping paused. Then resumed, softer, stubborn, defiant. That detail turned grief into fury. People didn't just watch the video. They studied it like scripture. They noticed how Du Siang never looked surprised. How he positioned himself between Yoon and the street. How the second man scanned the area, not for police, but for cameras. They noticed the lack of urgency. This wasn't a kidnapping gone wrong. It was a pickup. Within hours, Du Siang's public appearances vanished. Scheduled events were postponed. Accounts went private. Statements were drafted but never released. Silence thickened like fog, just as it had after the apartment incident, after the drone footage, after the witness spoke. Only now, silence sounded guilty. People gathered again, not shouting, not chanting, but projecting the taxi footage onto walls, bridges, sidewalks. Yoon's face enlarged until it filled entire buildings, his hesitation magnified, his compliance exposed for what it truly was. Forced choice. The goodbye song played underneath it all. Someone noticed something new. Yoon mouthed words just before entering the taxi. A lip reader slowed it down, replayed it dozens of times. 4 syllables. If I go. The rest was cut off by the closing door. The sentence never finished. But everyone knew how it ended. Inside internal channels tied to the shadow organization, alarms finally sounded. The taxi footage crossed a line they hadn't prepared for. It implicated coordination. Familiar faces. A bridge between the public and the hidden. One message leaked before deletion. "Do compromised us." Another followed seconds later. Yoon anticipated extraction. The realization hit like ice water. Yoon wasn't silenced because he was weak. He was silenced because he was prepared. The taxi wasn't the beginning of his end. It was the middle of his message. People re-watched the goodbye song again, noticing how the tempo subtly matched the taxi tapping. How the pauses aligned with traffic lights. How the final unresolved note mirrored the moment the taxi disappeared from camera view. It was all connected. Always had been. As night fell, a final clip surfaced, unverified, shaky, devastating. It showed the taxi from behind, stopped briefly at an intersection. The brake lights glowed red. And inside, barely visible through the rear window, Yoon turned his head and looked straight back at the camera following them. He didn't look afraid. He looked certain. As if to say, "You saw this. Now remember it." The city didn't sleep. Neither did the people demanding justice. Because once a man is forced into silence on camera, once the coercion is visible, undeniable, and shared, the story stops being about what might have happened. It becomes about who allowed it. And somewhere, far from the taxi, far from the lot, far from the piano, those responsible finally understood something they should have realized too late. Yoon Menglong didn't disappear into that car. He multiplied. The city reacted before the authorities could. By the time the taxi video reached its third hour online, intersections were already filling, not with protesters shouting slogans, but with people standing still, phones raised, replaying the same 10 seconds over and over. The moment Yoon Menglong's foot crossed the taxi threshold had become unbearable to watch and impossible to ignore. What unsettled everyone wasn't the force. It was the calm. Du Xiang's hand never shook. The second man never hurried. The taxi never peeled away. Everything moved at the speed of permission, not panic. That detail lodged itself in the public consciousness like a splinter under skin. Inside the digital underground, analysts went to work. Someone stabilized the video and noticed something new. Reflections in the taxi's rear door. Neon signs. A storefront camera. A pedestrian lifting a phone just before the door shut. A witness. The pedestrian's footage surfaced hours later, shakier, closer, raw. It showed Yoon half-turned, lips moving again, this time clearer. "Don't let them." The rest vanished into engine noise. That unfinished sentence ignited a second wave. People began recreating Yoon's final route, walking it step by step, filming their own footage, mapping blind spots and camera angles. The abandoned lot no longer felt distant, it felt inevitable, like the end of a corridor that had been quietly narrowing for weeks. Then came the timeline anomaly. Someone noticed the taxi's route made no sense. It didn't take the fastest path. It avoided major roads. It circled once, slowly, passing beneath a pedestrian bridge where the drone footage would later originate. That wasn't coincidence. That was alignment. Inside the taxi, according to newly isolated audio frequencies, there was a brief exchange just before the bridge. Yoon's voice again, steady, deliberate. "You said this was just a talk." The second man replied, flat and rehearsed, "It is. For us." The plural mattered. As night fell, an unexpected event shifted everything. The taxi driver's ID appeared on a forum, not doxed, not exposed, but listed as missing. No digital footprint after that night. No activity. No records past the drop-off point. The implication spread fast. The taxi wasn't a vehicle. It was a handoff. Candlelight vigils transformed into silent reenactments. People stood beside parked taxis, doors open, leaving the backseat empty. Others placed phones inside, playing Yoon's goodbye song on repeat, the sound muffled by glass and vinyl. The song felt different now. No longer mournful. Strategic. Someone realized the melody rose exactly when Yoon would have passed under streetlights. That the pauses matched turns. That the final unresolved note coincided with the moment the taxi entered the industrial district. He wasn't just saying goodbye. He was marking his location. The realization sent chills through the crowd. Then another leak hit. A maintenance log from a traffic control center showed manual overrides activated along the taxi's route. Green lights held longer. Reds shortened. A smooth, uninterrupted journey through a sleeping city. Someone wanted that car to move without friction. And someone else wanted the world to know. A former sound engineer posted a breakdown of the tapping Yoon made inside the taxi. When translated, it wasn't just rhythm, it was code. A simple pattern used to tag locations in audio logs. Coordinates. The abandoned lot wasn't random. It was chosen. That night, people gathered near the lot again, but something had changed. They didn't cross the perimeter. They didn't shout. They stood back, phones lowered, listening to the wind move through broken fencing and weeds. Someone whispered, "He stood here knowing this would happen." Another replied, "No. He stood here so we'd come back." The organization felt the pressure tightening. Anonymous accounts began posting denials too quickly, too defensively. One message slipped through before deletion. The taxi was never meant to be seen. That single line confirmed everything. Du Xiang's silence grew louder than any confession. Archived interviews resurfaced where he spoke about managing narratives and necessary sacrifices. The words played back now like rehearsals. But the most chilling event came near dawn. A final clip appeared, taken from a dashboard camera 2 cars behind the taxi. Grainy. Angled. Unmistakable. It showed Yoon, just before the vehicle turned away for the last time, pressing his palm flat against the glass. Not in fear. In acknowledgement. As if he knew someone, someday, would be watching from exactly that angle. The clip ended with the taxi disappearing into shadow. No cut. No explanation. Just absence. By morning, people weren't asking what happened anymore. They were asking why it was allowed. The taxi had become a symbol of compliance disguised as choice, of power disguised as order, of silence enforced by familiarity. And Yoon Menglong's name followed it everywhere, threaded through songs, footage, footsteps, and memory. He didn't fight the moment. He documented it. And now, the story was no longer chasing him. It was catching up to everyone else.